My name is Serena Vale, and 2 years ago, I stood in this very airport with a ticket that made my sister howl with laughter. She held a gold-embossed first-class boarding pass, while I clutched a crumpled economy seat in the very last row. My father didn't even look at me. He just told me to move faster so I wouldn't hold up their grand vacation. They thought I was the failure of the family, the one who couldn't even afford a decent flight. But then, a man in a navy blue flight uniform stepped through the crowd. He didn't head for the gate. He walked straight to me, stood at attention, and spoke my name with a level of respect that silenced the entire terminal. That was the moment their perfect world began to crumble, and mine finally took flight. The sound of rolling suitcases echoed through Terminal 3 like a slow, rhythmic heartbeat of judgment. Every step I took felt heavy, weighed down by the invisible chains of my family's expectations. My father's voice cut through the noise like a whip. "Move faster, Serena. You're holding us up again." I tightened my grip on my worn leather bag, forcing myself not to flinch. Around us, travelers moved with purpose. Families laughing, couples arguing, businessmen typing mid-stride. And there I was, standing between my father, Richard, and his new wife, Patricia, pretending this was just another trip. It wasn't. This was their grand getaway to New York. First-class tickets, luxury suites, and social media posts already drafted. I was the forgotten daughter, included only to maintain the illusion of family unity. My father checked his expensive watch, glaring at me as if my presence was a stain on his perfectly tailored suit. I remembered the days when he used to call me his little architect, back before the business consumed his heart and the new family replaced my place in his life. Now, I was just a liability to be managed, a secondary character in the blockbuster movie of his success. "Maybe she's nervous," my stepsister, Leah, said, flipping her glossy blonde hair with a smirk. "It's probably her first time seeing a plane up close." My father chuckled, a hollow sound that stung more than any insult. "She can't even afford economy, Leah. Don't expect her to know how airports work." Their laughter carried down the corridor, drawing curious glances from other passengers. My face burned hot, but I said nothing. I'd learned long ago that silence often cuts deeper than words. I adjusted my bag strap and stared out through the giant glass windows, where silver planes shimmered under the morning sun. I wasn't just a passenger. I was a ghost in their machine. Leah continued to wave her boarding pass around like a magic wand, making sure everyone within a 10-foot radius knew she was flying in luxury. She leaned in close, whispering so only I could hear, "Don't worry, Serena. I'll take a picture of the champagne for you. You can look at it while you're eating your little bag of pretzels in the back." I just looked at her, noting the insecurity hidden behind her heavy eyeliner. She needed this hierarchy to feel whole. I just needed to get through the day. Leah lifted her boarding pass with a triumphant grin. "First-class boarding, Daddy. We'll be having champagne before takeoff. Enjoy your whatever that is, Serena." She gestured vaguely at my ticket. I murmured a quiet response, but she just smirked. "Don't be bitter, Serena. Some of us just make better life choices." That one landed exactly where she meant it to. 2 years ago, I had made a choice. I walked away from the company I'd helped build from the ground up after my father handed my entire division, my life's work, to Leah. He called it a family transition. I called it betrayal. Now, they stood in front of me, polished and proud, while I held the remnants of the life I'd built with my own hands. I thought about the late nights I spent in the office, the hundreds of spreadsheets I perfected, and the clients I won over with nothing but a firm handshake and a solid plan. All of that was handed over to a girl who didn't know the difference between a gross margin and a growth rate. My father hadn't looked at the data. He had looked at who made him feel more like a powerful patriarch. Leah played the role of the dutiful, admiring daughter, while I played the role of the worker. In his world, work was expected, but flattery was rewarded. My father leaned closer, his voice low enough to sting without attracting witnesses. "Do us a favor, Serena. Try not to embarrass the family name. People talk." I met his gaze, my eyes calm and unblinking. "People always talk, Dad." It's what they say later that matters. He blinked, not expecting me to push back, even slightly. Then, the loudspeaker crackled. Now boarding flight 218, first-class passengers to New York. They gathered their designer luggage, their laughter already restored as they moved toward the gate. See you in coach, if you can even find it. Leia threw over her shoulder. I didn't answer. I just watched them walk away, disappearing into the tunnel, a perfect picture of money and self-satisfaction. I felt a strange sense of peace as they left. It was as if a physical weight had been lifted from my shoulders. For years, I had tried to fit into the narrow boxes they built for me. I had tried to be the daughter he wanted, the sister Leia could tolerate, and the employee they could exploit. But standing there in the middle of the terminal, watching them walk toward their exclusive experience, I realized I didn't want to be in their box anymore. I had spent the last 24 months building a world of my own, and it was finally time to step into it. The noise of the terminal blurred into a background hum of boarding calls and security alarms. But through the chaos, another sound emerged, the low, authoritative click of boots across the polished floor. I turned to see a man in a Navy flight uniform standing before me. He was broad-shouldered and precise, carrying an air of quiet authority. His tone was polite but firm as he addressed me. Miss Vale. I nodded. Your jet is ready, ma'am. We'll begin pre-flight whenever you're ready. The words hit the air like thunder. My father stopped mid-step at the gate. Leia froze beside him, confusion flashing across her perfect smile. I blinked once, slowly, and then offered the officer a calm nod. Perfect timing. I was getting tired of standing. The officer, whom I recognized as Grant, my head of flight operations, didn't even acknowledge my family. His focus was entirely on me. He held out a hand for my bag, but I shook my head gently. I wanted to carry it myself. It held the laptop that started everything. The car is waiting just outside the VIP exit, Grant continued. We've cleared the runway for a priority departure. I could feel the eyes of every person in the boarding line on me, but specifically, I felt the burning stare of my father. The officer gestured toward the private terminal beyond the security barrier, where a sleek black car waited. Gasps rippled through the nearby crowd as they realized what was happening. Leia's mouth dropped open. Jet? Her? The officer's voice carried clearly over the terminal noise. Yes, ma'am. Miss Vale owns it. My father's complexion drained to ash. Serena, he stammered, his voice cracking. What is this? I adjusted the strap on my shoulder, met his eyes, and smiled faintly. You were right, Dad. I can't afford economy. I saw the gears turning in my father's head, the realization that the failure he had been mocking was actually someone he no longer recognized. Leia looked like she was about to explode with questions, but I didn't give her the chance. I turned and walked toward the private terminal, the click of my heels a metronome of calm power. I didn't look back to see their faces again. I didn't need to. I had memorized their expressions of disdain for years. I didn't need to memorize their expressions of shock. Each step felt like shedding the weight of the past. I was leaving behind the years of being overlooked and the night my father handed my project file to Leia with a patronizing pat on the shoulder. I hadn't made a mistake. I'd made a move. The car door opened, and I slid inside, the scent of leather and quiet wealth wrapping around me. Through the tinted glass, I saw my father still standing at the gate, his mouth slightly open, passengers whispering all around him. When the car reached the jet, the sunlight hit it full, a sleek, silver bird with my company's logo gleaming across the tail. Vale Systems. The flight officer opened the cabin door. Welcome aboard, Miss Vale. I stepped onto the stairs, feeling the vibration of the auxiliary power unit under my feet. This wasn't just a plane. It was a symbol of every hour of sleep I had sacrificed and every doubt I had pushed through. 2 years ago, I was sleeping on a floor in a tiny apartment above a laundromat, surviving on ramen and caffeine, while my father and Leia were traveling the world on the profits of my hard work. Today, the scales were finally balanced. Inside the jet, everything gleamed. Cream leather seats, polished wood trim, and the faint, powerful hum of engines beneath the floor. I sank into the seat by the window, exhaling slowly as the aircraft stirred to life. The city outside looked small now, smaller than their laughter, smaller than the years they spent underestimating me. As the jet rolled toward the runway, my phone buzzed. It was my father. I let it ring twice before answering. His voice snapped through the line. "What kind of game are you playing, Serena?" I replied quietly, "No game, Dad. I just stopped living by your rules." He hissed about being practical and demanded to know where I got the money, but I simply stared out at the tarmac. "You mean the company you're still using? The one I built before you replaced me? I just built a better version. And this time, I didn't put your name on the door." The silence on the other end of the line was the most satisfying sound I had heard in years. He realized that the daughter he had tried to bury had instead become his biggest competitor. The line went dead, but I didn't mind the silence. Officer Grant approached with a folder. "Your itinerary for New York, Miss Vale. Your security team will escort you on arrival. We've also received word that Monroe Holdings, your father's company, is experiencing a significant stock dip this morning." I thanked him, and he hesitated for a moment. "If I may, ma'am, it's not every day someone takes back everything they lost." I smiled faintly. "It's not about taking it back, Grant. It's about becoming someone they never thought I could be." Outside, the engines roared, the ground fell away, and the city shrank beneath clouds streaked gold by the morning light. 2 years ago, I'd left with nothing but a laptop and a dream. Tonight, I was flying over every doubt they ever planted in me. Below, they boarded their plane in first class, trapped in a shrinking empire. Above, I owned the sky, ready to show the world that the forgotten daughter was now the one in charge. As we reached cruising altitude, I opened my laptop and looked at the data for Monroe Holdings. It was worse than Grant had described. They were overextended, and the division my father had given to Leia was hemorrhaging cash. They were going to New York not for vacation, but to beg for a merger that would save them. What they didn't know was that the firm they were meeting with was a subsidiary of Vale Systems. I wasn't just flying to New York to show off. I was flying there to decide whether or not to let my father's legacy survive. I leaned back and closed my eyes, the hum of the jet a soothing lullaby. For the first time in my life, I wasn't bracing for impact. I was the one directing the flight. I thought about the journey ahead and the look on their faces when they walked into that boardroom and saw me sitting at the head of the table. The laughter at the airport was a distant memory. Now, the only thing that mattered was the view from the top. Would you like me to continue with what happens when they actually meet in the New York boardroom?